I want to start by telling you a story. When I was very young, me and my family were living in this damp, tiny little flat in a rough part of London. And my dad's a carpenter, so he was working locally at the time. And one day he got asked to go and do some work in the flat of this kid who'd just come out of the care system, got mixed up in some pretty rough trouble with gang violence, and been kicked out of where he was living. So my dad went round there to do some work. He was clearing some stuff out of the flat when he found this bit of paper just screwed up on the floor. And he picked it up to see if it was anything important. And it was a note. And it said, "I want to be a good boy, but there's no one there to help me. I want to be a good boy, but there's no one there to help me." Now let that sink in for a minute. That boy didn't say, "I want to be a rich boy." He didn't say, "I want to be successful." He didn't even say, "I want to be happy." He said, "I want to be a good boy." And yet, in a city full of people and throughout his whole life, no one ever gave him that chance. Now, if you think that we should all just be part of a world where that's acceptable, then I give up now. But if you, like me, believe that that is a crime against humanity, then help me change it. My dad has told me that story thousands of times, so much so that in our family, anytime that anyone ever mentions the boy, everyone knows immediately what they're talking about. And yet that story still has the power to make my dad cry. How does it make you feel? Even though I don't know his name and I can't picture his face in my head, I always imagine that boy writing that note, trailing off halfway through it, screwing it up in anger and pain and frustration, believing that no one would care and no one would listen. Was he right? And that boy is nameless and faceless in my head, which means he could be any one of us crying out for help. But at the same time, he's not an abstract concept to me. He's a real human being, and this is his story. It's so crazy to think that I might not be sitting here talking to you today if that boy hadn't written that note, put into one sentence that feeling that so many young people feel. And it's so crazy to think that that boy would never have imagined that some random carpenter that he probably just passed on the stairs would ever have seen himself in every word of that note, a note that was never intended for anyone else to read, or maybe it was. And that he would make it pretty much his life's mission to build a world where every single young person could be good. And you would never have imagined that that carpenter's daughter would be sitting here today telling you his story, a story that's pretty much become my story too. Within a few years, my whole life had turned upside down. I went from living in London to moving into a bus and hitting the road. I was only 5, but my parents knew that they wanted me and my siblings to be part of building a new world, a world where every young person had the chance to be good, and that included me. Now I'm 18, and I guess I've been preparing for this my whole life. I point blank refuse to be part of a world that allows that sentence to be written and where any young person's cry for help can go ignored. So that's why I'm writing a manifesto for change. I'm titling it, "I want to be a good boy, but there's no one there to help me." A manifesto for a world where every young person can be good. It's both a vision for what the world could look like and a case for why it needs to change. Written by the youth, for the youth, with every perspective represented. This manifesto will outline a practical plan for what a different world could look like. It will shed light on the truths that have been hidden for so long, and it will show us the potential of what it is we can actually build. Let me say this now. I know it often feels like we're just small, token young people struggling to create changes within a failing, struggling system. But we can build a new one, step by step. I truly believe we can, because I believe we have the truth on our side. There are certain truths that are undeniable. As human beings, they are so deeply ingrained within us that even when the world gets messy and confusing, we still know deep down what's right and wrong. As young people, especially, we have this uncorrupted sense of justice, equality, kindness, right? And then somehow we grow up into a world where those things get lost. They're not valued. They're seen as a weakness or an obstacle on the path to success. And that's how you end up with kids like that boy. His story is pure truth. The deep, human need and desire to be good, and a society which is not designed to support him. As young people, those truths aren't buried so deep within us. They are still raw on the surface, and we have to realise that that's our superpower. We have to stand up in our own lives and in our own communities at every opportunity and act on what we know to be right. And when there are no opportunities, we have to create them. It is all about perception. What is acceptable in today's world may be seen as completely unthinkable in tomorrow's world. All throughout history, people have accepted and perpetrated terrible things: genocide, oppression, inequality, division, and it has just taken someone to stand up and show people the truth. And if enough people's eyes have been opened, they've taken action, and it has made it impossible to ignore. At the moment, we are so stuck within our very narrow, limited understanding of the way the world works. If we can open our eyes to a whole different way of looking at things, everything could change. So my sister has recently become involved in the Youth Ocean Network and is currently planning a campaign based around raising awareness of the environmental impact of using bleach as a cleaning product. And you might be thinking, Gracie, where are you going with that? But stick with me. So bleach causes huge damage to biodiversity, and it goes straight back into the water system, which we then drink directly from. Yet so many households use bleach and don't think anything of it. Why is that? Well, bleach is advertised as being the most effective way of killing pretty much all germs and bacteria. So whilst we still see that as a good thing, bleach is basically a wonder product. But once we live in a world where we're connected to our environment and we are aware of the impact that bleach has on the environment and on us, that same sales pitch becomes its downfall. You can just imagine a kid going to their parents and saying, "What, you purposefully use something which kills 99.9% of germs and bacteria? That's straight up poison." And to put that into perspective, a 2016 study at the Weizmann Institute of Science found that we actually have more bacterial cells in our body than human ones. Now think about that on a much wider scale. All of these things that are poisoning and polluting our society are seen as acceptable until we open our eyes and start seeing things differently. The worst enemy of bleach is the bleach itself. Just like the worst enemy of any injustice is the injustice itself. Once the truth about something is exposed, change has to follow. Once we know the truth, we have to reimagine every single element of society. Housing, how could it look different? Education, how can we reshape it? The care system, how can it be revolutionised? The way we see asylum seekers, refugees, immigrants, how can we turn that upside down? And don't even get me started on individualism. That's the first thing that's got to go. But so many of us don't even feel in control of our own lives. How can we possibly create all of these big changes? Well, I believe that it's all about shifting our value system. Now, I know what you're thinking. Really, Gracie? Values, aren't we a bit past that? But bear with me. It's living by a different value system that has empowered me to feel like I can create change, and is the reason I'm sitting here talking to you today, and the reason I haven't given up hope, despite living in our crazy, crazy world. If you really think about it, our value system defines everything. What we aim for, what we prioritise, what we see as successful, what we see as a failure. It shapes all those things that we talked about earlier. Our education system, social attitudes, the housing crisis. Okay, let me ask you this. Is it really a housing crisis that we face, or is it a value crisis? How many spare rooms are sitting empty right now? How many second homes are gathering dust? How many would there be if our value system was different? Would there still be that same level of inequality? Would we still see housing as a way to make a profit? Or would we see it through the lens of the basic human need for shelter and for a home? As human beings, our reality is based on stories. And there is always this kind of overarching narrative that tells us how we should be living our lives. At the moment, that narrative says, you're a failure if you're not doing well at school. It says, you'll be happy as long as you've got plenty of stuff. It says, you're successful even if you knock everyone else down on your way to the top. And it says, you'll be okay as long as you just look out for yourself. In your experience, do you believe that this narrative is true? Do you believe we should just all blindly accept this as our only option? It is this narrative that often makes us feel like we're not in control, like someone else is deciding the outcome of our lives and could turn our lives upside down at any moment. I know how terrifying that feels. But guess what? It's all based on values. If we can shift our value system, we rewrite that narrative, and the old narrative becomes irrelevant because we have a new one. I want to be clear. A value shift is not an abstract concept. It's a set of choices. Truth without action is always meaningless. Take my life, for example. I live in a wooden cabin on the back of an old pickup truck. I've lived in tiny spaces since I was 5, including the bus, a pedal-powered canal boat, a little house on the back of a trailer, and a tiny 50-year-old camper van. My classroom/workspace is built out of entirely recycled materials, and by that I mean old washing machines and fridges. And my education has always been about preparing me to be someone who helps make the world a better place and follows my passions, not just passing exams or getting a job. Our cost of living has always been really low because we've always valued and invested in people and relationships. I've spent a year of my life travelling the UK telling people stories, living on £5 a day with between 5 of us. And now I'm dedicating my life to creating change at a time where most people my age are at uni or struggling to get a job and stay afloat. This is because I live by different values. There is a lot of talk amongst our generation about redistributing wealth and power, but this gives us the opportunity to completely redefine it. And not to sound too overexcited or anything, but honestly, how cool is that? To reshape the world around you. To reimagine the world as it could be through totally different eyes. To break free from the constraints and restrictions that box us in. That is our real power. All throughout history, anyone who ever changed anything for the better changed it because the truth made them unstoppable. They could not be silenced or ignored, and neither will we. To go from one value system to another, we have to create a movement with truth at its heart. This manifesto, made up of our stories and laying out our new values, is just the beginning. We will follow it up with constant, creative, positive, challenging action. Creative because we're creating something for young people to believe in and capturing their imagination to see the possibilities of everything we can build. Positive because we are creating something good out of so much negativity. Challenging because we are showing the absurdity of what it is we currently see as acceptable. Action because we're not just talking about this stuff, we're living it. This will be through videos, stories, poetry, podcasts, humour and more. So whatever you're good at, use it to be good. Come join the movement. What will you bring?